You wake up hungry. There's no fridge, there's no drive-through, there's no cereal box with a cartoon tiger on it. There's just you, a landscape, and about 12 hours of daylight to figure out lunch. This is the reality every human ancestor lived in for over 95% of our species' existence. No farms, no granaries, no scheduled meals, just constant, relentless, creative survival. So what did they actually eat? The answer is way weirder, way more varied, and way more impressive than you were probably taught in school. Let's start by killing a myth. The caveman ate only meat idea is mostly wrong. It's oversimplified. It's mostly marketing. Real hunter-gatherer diets were wildly diverse. They shifted by season. They shifted by region. They shifted by whatever the land actually offered that week. Some groups ate mostly plants. Some ate mostly meat. Most ate a shifting mix of both, constantly adapting. There was no single ancestral diet. There were thousands of them. Let's talk about how we even know any of this. Archaeologists don't have security footage of a Stone Age dinner, so they rely on clues. Isotope analysis is one of the biggest. When you eat something, tiny chemical signatures get locked into your bones. Different foods leave different isotope ratios. Scientists can look at ancient bones and estimate roughly how much meat versus plants a person ate over their lifetime. It's not perfect, but it's remarkably powerful. Another clue is dental calculus. That's the hardened plaque on ancient teeth. Trapped inside it are microscopic food particles, starch grains, plant fibers, even tiny bits of pollen. Researchers have found ancient dental plaque loaded with evidence of grains, tubers, and legumes, long before farming existed. Let that sink in for a second. People were eating plant staples tens of thousands of years before agriculture. They just weren't planting them on purpose yet. Let's talk meat because it does matter. Big game hunting left an enormous mark on the archaeological record. Mammoth bones, bison bones, deer, horse, and wild cattle remains, covered in cut marks from stone tools. Hunting large animals was high risk. But the payoff was massive. One mammoth could feed a group for weeks. That's an incredible calorie return for one successful hunt. But hunting wasn't guaranteed. Animals move, animals fight back, animals sometimes just aren't there. So meat wasn't a daily certainty. It was a jackpot, and smart groups didn't build their whole survival strategy around jackpots. This is where gathering comes in, and it's criminally underrated. In most hunter-gatherer societies studied by anthropologists, gathered plant foods provided the bulk of daily calories. Not meat, plants, roots, tubers, nuts, seeds, fruits, leafy greens, and fungi made up a huge share of the diet. Women in many traditional foraging societies were often the primary gatherers. Their contribution wasn't a side dish. It was often the main course. Tubers deserve special credit here. Digging sticks have been found at archaeological sites dating back well over 100,000 years. That tells us something huge. Ancient humans were deliberately digging underground for food. Underground storage organs, like tubers and roots, are calorie-dense. They're also relatively reliable. Unlike a herd of animals, a tuber doesn't run away. Some researchers argue that access to underground plant foods may have been critical to human brain evolution. More reliable calories meant more energy available for a growing, expensive brain. Your ancestors may partly owe their intelligence to dirt and roots. Let's talk nuts, because nuts are an underappreciated survival food. They're calorie-dense. They store well. They don't spoil quickly like fruit. Archaeological sites across Europe, Africa, and Asia show heavy nut consumption going back tens of thousands of years. Acorns, pistachios, walnuts, and hazelnuts show up again and again in the archaeological record. Some had to be processed to remove toxins first. That takes planning. That takes knowledge passed down across generations. This wasn't random snacking. This was sophisticated food science, without a single textbook involved. Now let's talk about something people rarely mention: insects. Entomophagy, the eating of insects, has deep roots in human history. Termites, grubs, locusts, and ants show up as food sources across many ancient and traditional diets. Insects are shockingly nutritious, high in protein, high in fat, often easier to obtain than a fleeing antelope. There's a reason insect consumption is still common today in parts of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. It's not primitive, It's efficient. Modern squeamishness about bugs is largely a cultural bias, not a biological one. Let's move to the coast, because coastal ancient humans were eating incredibly well. Shellfish require zero hunting skill and zero weapons, just timing and access to a tide pool. Massive shell middens, essentially ancient trash heaps of discarded shells, have been found along coastlines worldwide. Some date back over 100,000 years. Mussels, clams, oysters, and crabs provided steady, reliable, protein-rich meals. Fish were also heavily exploited wherever water allowed. Some researchers argue that coastal and shoreline diets, rich in seafood, may have played a major role in supporting human brain development. Omega-3 fatty acids, common in fish and shellfish, are essential for brain tissue. Ancient humans near the coast may have had a serious biological advantage, not because they were smarter to begin with, because their environment was quietly feeding their brains the raw materials they needed. Let's talk fire, because fire changed everything about ancient eating. Cooking does something remarkable. It breaks down tough plant fibers. It denatures proteins. It makes food dramatically easier to digest. Some researchers argue that cooked food may have freed up energy that would otherwise go toward digestion. That energy could then be redirected elsewhere, toward bigger brains, toward more active lifestyles. Cooking also made previously inedible or dangerous foods safe. Certain tubers are toxic raw. Heat breaks down those toxins. Suddenly, an entire category of food becomes available that wasn't before. Fire didn't just keep ancient humans warm, it rewired what was possible to eat. Now, here's something that surprises people. Ancient diets weren't static. They shifted dramatically by season. Spring might mean early greens and eggs from nesting birds. Summer might bring berries, fruits, and small game. Autumn often meant a nut and root harvesting frenzy, storing calories for leaner months ahead. Winter often meant heavier reliance on stored food, fat reserves from animals, and whatever could survive the cold. This wasn't a fixed menu. It was a constantly shifting survival calendar. Ancient humans had to track dozens of food sources across an entire year. That takes serious environmental knowledge. Knowledge passed down through generations, refined constantly through trial and error. Let's also bust another myth while we're here. The idea that ancient humans were mostly starving and desperate is largely inaccurate. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies, used as imperfect but useful comparisons, suggest that foraging for food often took far less time than people assume. Some estimates put daily foraging effort at around 3 to 5 hours. That leaves a lot of time left over. For rest, for socializing, for storytelling around a fire. The brutal, exhausting struggle for survival narrative is partly a modern projection. Life was hard. But it wasn't necessarily one long, unbroken emergency. Let's talk fat, because fat mattered enormously. Modern diet culture treats fat like the enemy. Ancient humans treated fat like treasure. Bone marrow was a prized food source. Animal bones were deliberately smashed open to access the fatty marrow inside. Cut marks and percussion marks on ancient bones show this clearly. In lean seasons, fat provided crucial, dense calories that lean meat alone couldn't offer. There's even a documented phenomenon called rabbit starvation, where eating only lean protein without enough fat can actually make you sick over time. Ancient humans likely understood, through hard experience, that fat wasn't optional. It was essential. Let's zoom out to geography, because location changed everything. Arctic populations relied heavily on fatty marine mammals, fish, and animal fat since plant food was scarce for much of the year. Tropical populations had access to a wider variety of fruits, tubers, and plant foods year-round. Grassland populations relied more heavily on large game hunting and seasonal plant gathering. There was no universal ancient human diet. There were localized survival strategies, shaped by climate, geography, and available species. This is part of why modern claims about the one true ancestral diet fall apart under scrutiny. Ancestral diets were plural, not singular. Let's talk about something genuinely surprising. Evidence of processed plant food goes back much further than most people assume. Starch residue found on ancient grinding stones suggests some populations were processing wild grains and plants tens of thousands of years before farming began. This blurs the line between hunter-gatherer and farmer more than people realize. Agriculture didn't appear out of nowhere. It emerged gradually from populations that were already intensively managing wild plant foods. Farming wasn't a lightning bolt of invention. It was the slow endpoint of thousands of years of increasingly intensive foraging. So let's bring this together. What did ancient humans eat before farming? Almost everything their environment could offer: roots and tubers dug from the earth, nuts gathered and carefully processed, fruits and berries, seasonal and fleeting, shellfish harvested from tide pools, fish pulled from rivers and coastlines, insects high in protein and easy to find, big game hunted at high risk for a massive reward, marrow and fat treasured and never wasted. This wasn't a narrow diet. It was one of the most flexible, adaptive survival strategies in the history of life on Earth. And that flexibility is arguably the real ancestral inheritance. Not a specific food list, not a specific ratio of meat to plants. The real inheritance is adaptability itself. The ability to look at almost any environment on the planet and figure out how to eat well enough to survive. Modern humans still carry that legacy, even if most of us now express it by scrolling a delivery app instead of digging for tubers. The next time you eat something, think about that chain. Thousands of generations of humans, testing, learning, failing, adapting. Also that eventually you could stand in front of a fridge at midnight, deciding what to eat, completely unaware of just how many ancestors it took to get you here.